Right. Oh, this is the part. I like this Mishnah, the part of the Mishnah. More is a sim. Look, this is again. Look at the kind of things they're offering me. This is the part. I like this. Yeah, very quickly. Can you just show me? Why would he show me such a thing?
So let's say go there.
Yeah.
Wait.
It's shocking. Careful, they're not coming out also.
Oh, sorry. Where's it? Wait. It's generally on the side there.
This is
Somewhere.
again.
On the side there.
Things they're offering me.
That's generally where it is.
Good evening, Ben. How are you?
Try check on YouTube because I don't go now.
Good evening, Baruch Hashem. How are you?
Why does it have this meeting information? Okay. Can you hear me? Ben? Yeah. Oh, very good. Okay, let's get going. It's already a minute late. Right. We're up to Sabach Gimel Amud Beis. We're discussing the halachas of shechting a korban. I'm sorry, this chair is broken. I'm going to change the chair. Right, discussing the halachas of shechting a korban when a person still owns chametz. We said there are actually three different opinions. Never remember who's going to be the three opinions. We had a chance to have a drink. Those three opinions.
You tell me then, and I'll tell you if they're right.
Abaya and Rova.
What? Let's say no.
Abaya and Rova?
No. Three Tanoim.
It has to be in his Azor or not?
No, I talk about which kind of. When are you chayav? When do you get malchus for owning chametz? No, Yehuda is one, but the Tanakama says only if you shech the korban Pesach with chametz. The Yehuda says if you shech the korban Tomid with chametz. And the Shimon says if you shech any korban, except one thing of Shimon says, it has to be a kosher korban. So on Erev Pesach, it has to be korban Pesach. On Yom Tov, it can be any korban except for korban Pesach. Oh, says the Gemara like this. So we had a Beis yesterday that said these halachas, and now the Gemara asks a contradiction. Uminu. It is 5 lines from the bottom of Sabach Gimel Beis. Asherich is a Pesach al chometz. Shech korban Pesach on chometz. Ever below say that shitas Tanakam. Rabbi Yehuda Mafat Tomid also korban Tomid. Omu loy. Omu elo bePesach b'vad. We disagree with you. Only korban Pesach. Amos side is one sheish the sheichet if the sheichet has it. Or the zoyve can only sprinkles. Or lechad with a chabo. Or lechad with sefer ilam and zaku. Does anybody remember how we know that? How do we know that if somebody somewhere in the world owns chametz and I shech korban Pesach, I don't get malchus? Because it doesn't say this is al chametz cho your chametz. It says this. Sorry, v'lo yolin. Sorry, it says v'lo yolin. Leisishchat v'lo yolin. Those who are responsible v'lo yolin are responsible. Ve'echad ha'sheichet whether you shecht. Ve'echad ha'zek if you do zvika. Ve'echad ha'moilek. What's melika? Which kind of animal? Bird. Ve'echad ha'mazeh chayav. Aber kimitz samin chayin over v'lo yisasei. So kimitz yes chayav. Kmitza not. Now we can obviously when we're talking about melika or we talk about korban Pesach. No. So what's like this? And one who burns it on his back is not over. Says the Gemara top line. That means in the previous Beis which we mentioned at the end of yesterday, which we wanted to support our papa with, it says that Melika you are chayv. And here, sorry, you're not chayv. And here it says Melika you are chayv. And there it says Aktor you are chayv, and this is Aktor you're not chayv. So we've got two contradictions between the Beis regarding when you want to your own chametz. It says more l'tamich. This Beis anyway doesn't make any sense. Why? Because tikshiloch hi gufa. Tiktoni lo yamol bePesach bilvad. It says only Pesach. You start off by saying only korban Pesach, and then you say whether you shech did you do melika. You can't possibly be chayav on melika if you korban Pesach. Elo. Both Beis going according to Rabbi Shimon. Melika leikash kam ba'abos kam b'chodesh Shemot. The first Beis that says that you're chayav. So the first Beis says that your potter is talking about Erev Pesach. Why on Erev Pesach are you potter for doing melika? Does anybody want to tell me? Why on Erev Pesach? Oh, because on Erev Pesach Shimon says only korban Pesach and nothing else. So melika is not chayav. And the second Beis says Yimechayev is referring to Chodesh Moed, which Shimon says all korbanos. And here Rashi is a shtickle chap, an interesting chap. we're explaining. We have to say 5 lines from the top. It's important because it's in Pshat. The first, both Baises of Shimon. And Rabbi Shimon says that all korbanos on Pesach you're chayav. Now Pesach only come on Pesach. So the first Beis that says that you're potter for Melika, right? You've got it. It's the last. It's the 4 lines in the wide lines of yesterday. He's not chayav. Why are you not chayav for Melika on the 14th according to this stage of the Gemara? Why not chayav? Because it's not the Korban Pesach. And according to Rabbi Shimon, you only chayav Korban Pesach. Asks Rashi, if that's the case, why did Rabbi Shimon jump to such a complicated case? If we're talking about the 14th of the Pesach, and according to Rabbi Shimon, the only Korban you'd chayav Malkus for how many Chometz is Korban Pesach, he should have said, Avaloi Chatos Oila Shlamim Toida Nozi, whatever it is, and not Malika. Why do you have to mention not Malika? Rashi is a very good, very shatovish answer. Anyone want to suggest an answer? Why did he jump to Melika? If we're talking about Erev Pesach, no korban yochayv. The answer is, says Rashi, which korban in the world would anybody be bringing on Erev Pesach? The halacha is Erev Pesach when you've got chop, when you've got v'shechted korban Pesach, it's after the korban tomit. After the korban tomit, you're not allowed to bring any korbanos anyway. But there's one korban you can't bring after. We talked about Mechusa Kippurim, that somebody who never had the chance to bring a korban. Oh, Shalom, I looked up your question. Yeah. And Mechusa Kippurim, you're right, is allowed to bring Pesach Sheni, but it's still considered as Sei Sheish B'Koros. Because at the end of the day, the mitzvah to bring it on the first Pesach is such an important mitzvah that there is the concept of chorus there. Of course, he won't get chorus because of Pesach Sheni. Mm-hmm. The point is, again, that the only korban one could, in theory, bring is chatos ha'oiv. Because oilas ha'oiv, says Rashi, is not ma'akev the ability to eat korban Pesach, so you can't bring it after korban tomit. The only korban, theoretically, that could be brought on a Pesach afternoon when you shech the korban Pesach is chatos ha'oiv. For somebody, for example, a Zobo that never managed to bring his korbanos, and he needs to eat, he wants to eat the korban Pesach, so he's allowed to bring a chatas oif. So there, Rabbi Shimon says, nevertheless, he doesn't get malchus because, at the end of the day, it's not a korban Pesach. Again, the original Beis is going to Rabbi Shimon that you only chayav for all korbanos on Pesach, which are kosher, and El Pesach for the korban of Pesach. And he says you're not chayav for Melika. Why only Melika? The answer is because that's the only korban which potentially you would be bringing there, if you think about it. Very beautiful Rashi. And the second Beis, we said, and the second Beis is going to Rabbi Shimon and it's talking about Chol HaMoed. Some compare Shchita to Aktor to Shchita, and some don't. So it comes out that we've actually got 4 opinions as to which things you're chayav for by if you own chometz. Shittas Tanakama only korban Pesach. Shittas Yehuda korban tomit. In Rabbi Shimon we have an argument: all korbanos and haktorah as well, or all korbanos but not haktorah. Rabbi Yehuda imafa tomit v'chulu. Rabbi Yehuda says if you bring a korban tomit when you're shechting the korban Pesach, if you bring the korban tomit on the Pesach and you brought chometz, you get malchus. Ma'atamid Rabbi Yehuda maloch zivchi. Beisishchat al chometz dam zivchi. What does zivchi mean? What's the translation of zivchi? My korban. What's the most special korban that Hashem has? Zevach hamiyuchadli. The korban which is unique to me, my new tomid. Tomid is the most, like we say, you have to bring it every day, twice a day. So don't shecht my korban when you've got chometz. What's that? But since it says zivchi, it doesn't say zevach. It says zivchi. My korban is coming to include the korban which is mine. That's korban tomid. Pesach babos v'chulu. My tamid Rabbi Shimon. What's Rabbi Shimon hold? What's Rabbi Shimon hold?
Just one.
Oh, Tanakama. Tanakama says. Rabbi Shimon says all korbanos on Pesach and El Pesach just korban Pesach. There are 2 psukim that says don't shecht chometz. One's in Shmoyis Chav Gimel, one's in Shmoyis Lamed Aleph. So why since it says it twice, we have a rule in the Torah. Govin u'meisifin v'dorshin. Have you ever heard of this drasha before? Govin u'meisifin v'dorshin. A very strange way to darshan. If you've got a letter which is spare, we take it away from where it is, we add it to another place, and we explain the pasuk differently. So the Torah says twice, don't shecht chometz when you've got, don't shecht the korban Pesach when you've got chometz. And both times use the word zivchi with a yud. So the yud is spare. So we use the extra yud for the second place, and we read it zvochai. Zvochai means my korbanos, any of my korbanos, and you're not allowed to shecht any korban when you've got chometz in the Torah. What did you say?
Not all of these
Yes, there's Lamed Beis. Okay. So the Gemara says, and the why did the Torah split the two? Because of Zvochai. Lemeima, why did the Torah not just write Zvochai? Why did it write Zivchi? Why not write Zvochai? Answer, Lemeima, is Mandika Zevach. When there's a time of the Kohen Pesach, Lo Mechai V'Zvochai. Erev Pesach, you only chai for the Kohen Pesach. Is Mandeleka Zevach, when there's no Kohen Pesach, the Chai V'Zvochai, then you're chai for Zvochai, for all Korbanos. So Shimon Darshan Zivchi twice to tell you Zvochai. So therefore, you have to shech the Korban Pesach. When you shech the Korban Pesach, you only chayav on Korban Pesach, on the rest of Yom Tov for all Korbanos. But all Korbanos that are kosher. So let's say you forgot to shech the Korban Pesach on Erev Pesach, and you shecht it on Pesach. Kosher or possible? What would you say? You didn't shech your Korban Pesach on Erev Pesach. You shecht it middle of Chol Hamoed Pesach. Kosher or possible?
It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time.
Kosher or possible?
What do you mean to what? The actual mitzvah of Pesach.
So the halacha is, I was hoping you'd say a little bit more. For Korban Pesach, it's possible because you missed it. But you can say it's a shlomim and then it's kosher.
Can you change it?
No, you say mitzvah. I asked if it's kosher or possible, not if you kept it mitzvah. It's not kosher on Pesach. We can use it as a Korban shlomim. We had it before. Yes.
How can you shecht Pesach?
No, before you shecht this Korban Pesach on Chol Hamoed, you say to yourself, this sheep, which I was makdish, I sanctified the Korban Pesach, I'm now going to shecht it as a shlomim, and it's kosher. Right? So again, if someone would say to Korban Pesach that shecht Chol Hamoed Pesach kosher, possible, you'd say to him, if you don't do anything about it and you intend it as a Korban Pesach, possible. If you intend it as a shlomim, it is kosher. We actually had this Gemara once before. Now, what would you say? Once Pesach comes in, the Gemara asks l'chayra, it's automatically no longer a Korban Pesach. Why is it automatically no longer a Korban Pesach? Because too late has Korban Pesach. So it automatically should become a shlomim. Yet in our Mishnah, what does it say? That you have to consider and decide to make it a shlomim. Why? The second that it's no longer, once you got there of Pesach, it comes 6 o'clock in the evening, Pesach came in. Now it's too late to shech Korban Pesach. That second at 6 o'clock, automatically it cannot be a Korban Pesach. Why can't you use it the next year, by the way? Or be a year old. No, it won't go off. It's a live animal. Or be a year old. Be no good. So this Korban is ever going to be used as a Korban Pesach? No. If it's never going to be used as a Korban Pesach, automatically it's going to be a Shlomim. So why do you have to designate it as a Shlomim? Automatically, the second that Pesach comes in, you're never going to use it as Korban Pesach. Oh, the Gemara says. That's the Gemara's question. That's the Gemara's question. Do you have to have das to make the Shlomim? Automatically. It says, oh, he just said Pesach Sheni. You can use it for Pesach Sheni.
After Pesach Sheni then. Ask the question after Pesach Sheni.
You're right. After Pesach Sheni, you don't need to do anything. It's automatically a Shlomim. That's right. Very good. Only if you decide to make it a Shlomim. Hostam Potter. Amai Pesach b'Shai Boisa Shadi Shlomim Hava. It should become a Shlomim, and therefore it should be a kosher korban, and it should be chayav. Why should you be chayav? Because of having chometz at home when you're shechting kosher korban or Shlomim. Shmas we know Pesach b'Shai Boisa Shana Boya Akira requires a definite decision to uproot it. It says, well, no, you got no proof. Sometimes the whole Beis Medrash agree on something, so we say the group threw out the following statement. This comes up quite a lot of times in Shas. It was thrown out from this group. That means the whole Beis Medrash agreed on this answer. The owners was Tommy, and therefore it's pushed to Pesach Sheni. The Stomach should Pesach Koi. So therefore, if the owners are pushed off to Pesach Sheni, it's therefore Pesach Sheni. Therefore it's still a Pesach. But after Pesach Sheni, what's the din? It's a Shlomim. So automatically it actually becomes a Shlomim. But if it's not automatically a Shlomim, because you could still use it as Pesach Sheni, so therefore questions like this. Pesach, Korban Pesach, which has been designated as Korban Pesach, and now it's no longer Pesach. Is it automatically a Shlomim or not? It depends. If it's Tmei Meis, and therefore it's going to be for Pesach, no, it's not. If it's not a Tmei Meis, then we designate as then you're right. Then it becomes automatically a Shlomim.
Why don't we keep it for someone else who needs to become Pesach?
I assume because the point is he designated for himself, and therefore, okay. Says the Mishnah, HaPesach nishchat b'shalosh kitos. The Korban Pesach was shechted in 3 groups. Shenema. This Mishnah describes to us the halachos of how to be Korban Pesach. The Kuzvi writes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us an imagination. Do you know the power of the imagination is a very powerful thing? What are you supposed to use your power of imagination? He says to picture events in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Kedas Yitzchak, to imagine beautiful pictures. We have to imagine the avodah of the Korban Pesach. That is our ikar avodah. What?
It's like one big barbecue. I can imagine that.
No, yes, Mitzvah Shabbat as well. That's it.
This year, maybe.
Mitzvah Shabbat. A Pesach nishchat b'shalosh kitos. The Pesach shechted in 3 groups. Shenema v'shachtu esuk kol adas Yisroel. Kahal be'edav Yisroel. Nichnes lo kasav yishon. The first group comes in. Nismalo azor. Noalu das azor. They lock the doors. Toku yu v'toku. They blew the shofar. Tkir to tkir. Hakohanim onim shuos. They would stand in rows. U'biyedem bezichi kesef bezichi zav. They would have bowls of silver, bowls of gold to carry the blood. Shiur shekolo kesef, but shiur shekolo zav. They had 1 row of silver, 1 row of gold. I have to picture the beauty of it, all the Kohanim standing in rows and throwing the rows back and forth. Lo yoyu muravin, they would not mix the rows. Each row was distinct. They had no bottoms to their bowls. Why? If you put them down, the blood would become congealed. What?
Conical.
That's right, conical. Shochat Yisrael, a Yid would shecht. Bing machlikas Rishonim doesn't mean dafka or also a Yid would shecht, meaning not a Kohen. There are many Rishonim that say that on Erev Pesach, Kohanim did not shecht, because there was so much to be done, they would not use Kohanim to shecht, they would let Yisroelim shecht. Others say, usually Kohanim. Some say it just means that Yisrael could also shecht.
No, but I'm saying, is there any other korban that...
Yisrael's allowed to shecht any korban.
Oh, he can?
He can. But generally speaking, they would use a Kohen. What? That's for giving a Korban Tzibur was allowed to shecht. Yes. Shochat Yisrael v'kibul HaKohen, the Kohen would catch the blood. Those lechaver, you would take from one friend the full bowl, and you send back the empty bowl. Kohen HaKovetz al Mizbeach, the Kohen which was closest to Mizbeach, zokus v'kachas k'neged HaYesod. He would throw one throwing of the blood opposite the Yesod. The Yesod was round the Mizbeach on almost 3 walls. That means you have the big square Mizbeach. At the bottom there was a base. There was a base. The base didn't go all the way around the Mizbeach. It only went around, besides for the ramp, there was only went on 2 full walls and a tiny bit on the other 2 walls. But it didn't go all the way around. So when you threw the blood, you could throw it anywhere you wanted, as long as it was on those 2 sides that had a base at the bottom. Why normal korban?
Didn't have to put it on the actual Mizbeach, not the wall.
No, the most Kabbalists did 2 which were 4. Here you did 1.
Actually, do less.
You do less. Yeah.
We said before, do you remember the Kohen is shecht all the korbanos, and he's definitely over on a ladder.
I said if a Kohen was shecht, as he saw. Yeah, what did he say?
No, I was observing. I must have already observed.
More discusses that. Yotzukas Rishono. First group would go out, the second group would come in. The same story would repeat itself the second and third. They would read the Hallel. Rashi says, who would say Hallel? The people shechting the Korban Pesach. The Yid and the Yisraelim would say Hallel as they were shechting. Tosis says, look at the bottom. Tosis goes Hallel Pirish Levim. The Levim would say the Hallel. There are many, many questions about this Hallel. Rashi asks a very interesting question. Halacha is, you say a bracha before the Hallel. We see they didn't always finish Hallel. How can you make a bracha if you're not going to finish the Hallel? So according to this, it's not shver because the Levim would just say what the Hallel and just go through it, and they would finish. But if you say him, so why maybe they don't need to finish the Hallel when you make a bracha? What? What do you say? It's very shver to say that. Another question is, the Gemara Bracha says you never say Hallel unless you bring wine. And by Korban Pesach, there was no wine. This asked the Kasha. Right, so I'm not so much time. They used to sing Hallel. In Gomu, if they finished the Hallel Shonu, they would repeat the Hallel. In Shonu, if they finished the Hallel twice, Shileshu. After Shileshu, it never took them 3 times to say Hallel. Why? Because they would work very fast. So the amount of time it took them to do it would never be enough time to finish Hallel 3 times. Rabbi Yehuda Oima, Mimeim shel Kas Shlishis, the third group, Lo Yigiu Lo Hafti Kishma Hashem, B'fnei She'amam Rotim. There's a very famous, Ben Yod on this Gemara, very important in many places. Now he says like this: every group, there were 3 groups, every group would say Hallel. Sometimes would say once, twice, 3 times. The third group was always the smallest group because everybody would try and get in the first or the second group. Because you want to read these reasons active in the mitzvahs. So the third group was smaller. Since it was a small group, there was less to do. Since there was less to do, they never got halfway through Hallel, never got to Vahafti. It says like this. The Gemara later tells us that really you have to have a third group. It's Exersa Costa, there has to be 3 groups. So what did they do wrong? The answer is, at the end of the day, if you're enthusiastic, you would push yourself to be one of the first or second groups. So they never reached the level to be able to say the post of Vahafti that I love Hashem. Because there was a lack of love in the third group. I hear.
You don't always shit when you love something. You shit.
They all ask why we do. They all ask why we do. Yeah, they ask. There's a very big question why we don't say the night say bracha on the Hallel. We talk about this twice. We say Hallel once in Shiur, which some people do say bracha, and once on Seder night during the meal. The answer is different reasons because we stop in the middle with eating. All different reasons given, but usually we do. Okay. On the weekday, it would be the same as if it's Shabbos. That means even on Shabbos, we do all the process because you're allowed to mechal Shabbos, stachil Shabbos, the Korban Pesach. And the Kohanim would rinse the Azor down against the wish of the Chachamim. Why? Because the Chachamim held you weren't allowed to rinse the Azor. The Gemara discusses why. Rabbi Yehuda would say, so at the end of the process, there was huge amounts of blood. You take 1 cup of blood from the floor and sprinkle it on the Mizbeach, on the off chance that there was 1 korban which the blood never went on the Mizbeach. So by taking it from all the pool of blood that existed and throwing it on the Mizbeach, maybe the blood that spilled or didn't exist from 1 korban went on the floor, and then that way you got it. The Gemara discusses it, we'll get to it. From the mixture, they did not agree with it. How would you hang the Korban Pesach and strip it from the skins? They had metal hooks, so you could in the walls. There was 24 pillars in the Azor, 24 pillars, plus on the walls there was metal hooks. You would hang by the legs, the sheep, and you'd strip the leather, the skin from the legs downwards and take off the whole skin of the sheep. If a person didn't have a place to hang, there was not enough hooks. There were thin, smooth sticks. You would put it on your friend's shoulder and your own shoulder. That means to join it up. And you'd hang it on the stick and skin it. The 14th of Pesach, Shabbos. You put your hand on your friend's shoulder, he'd put his hand on your shoulder, and you'd strip it like that. The reason is, Rashi says over here, you're not allowed to make sticks on Shabbos because it's tikkun mana. They all ask him, Rashi, you can't imagine that. God says clearly in Shabbos that what's the reason you can't use sticks on Shabbos? What's the reason? No. Because you can prepare it before Shabbos, because it's muktzah. More says muktzah. The Meiri describes at great length how they used to skin the sheep with the sheep according to Rabbi Lezer. So Biel Chai will demonstrate this. So there's 2 of us, right? You stand up. Right. You have to, we can come a bit closer. I can't reach that far. No, it's not so hard to see. You put I can stand closer unless you guys stand further. I put my hand on his shoulder. My left hand says to me on his right shoulder. You put your left hand on my shoulder. Then we take a sheep each. You got a sheep. So I put it over here. You put yours there. And with your right hand, which is stronger always, you skin the sheep like this. And the sheep's legs were tied. They would stick to the legs because you would take a vein from the leg of the sheep and put it around your arm. And your right hand is stronger. Then I would skin it down like this. And you would skin down yours. That means the 2 of us within the space of our bodies would have to skin 2 sheep, which is quite cramped. But considering the fact that the Gemara says there were hundreds of thousands of sheep, that's how you did it. You used your right hand to skin and your left hand on your right shoulder. Left-handed. You'd have a problem. And by putting your left hand on the right shoulder, so your shoulder can support it. Okay, that's how the Bible explains. Koroi, after you skinned it, you would tear it apart. Some more, you would take out the parts that would go on the Mizbeach. Very interesting. Why is it called a Emuin? Emuin is from the word by Yomi Hashem and Moshe. This is what Hashem told Moshe to put on the Mizbeach. But that's one translation. Other translation is the fats that go on the Mizbeach. Nosle b'megis, you put it in a special bowl, and then you put it on the Mizbeach. Every time you put something on the Mizbeach, you first put it in a bowl. Very good. Now, what happens if it's Friday, Erev Shabbos? Can you roast it? Sorry, Friday, which is Shabbos. Can you? No, sorry. Erev Pesach, which is Shabbos. Erev Pesach, which is Shabbos. Like this year. Can you roast it on Shabbos? No. No, you can't. You shecht it on Shabbos. You can't roast it till night. So what you can't even move the sheep because it's muktzah, etc. You can't do anything with it. So what you used to do like this? The first group would sit on the Habais. They were allowed to move a little bit. Shiur bechil. The chil was an area of 11 hours around the Azor. They would sit in that area. Vashlishis b'mkimbo yibedes would stay in its place. Chashecha, once it's Nacht and it's Pesach and it's no more Shabbos, Yotzu v'tzoles Pesachim, they would quickly go out and roast the Korban Pesach once it's Nacht.
In another year where it's not.
Yeah, they could start roasting already on their Pesach.
Well, yeah, but can you start roasting afterwards? Or this is...
No, you could. You could start any time. You could roast any time. As long as it's shechted before, and you have to make sure to finish eating it by chatzos.
Well.
You have to roast it and salt it. Okay, the salting didn't take long. Roasting, you need to do very quick salting. It's a beautiful Rashash. I got such pleasure when I saw this Rashash. If you look at this Mishnah, they waited the Harabais. Why the first group, when he said they waited, it says Yoshvalo, and the third group, when he says they had to wait, it says He's not allowed to sit in the Azor. Since not allowed to sit in the Azor, only the first group could wait by sitting. But the third group that had to wait had to stand. So I said this over. So it was how long did they have to stand? Not easy to stand with the sheep and everything else. It wasn't so long. You really point out, they only shechted the common Talmud at 2:30. And by 6 it's Nacht. So you got 3.5 hours. The first group, let's say, took half, each group, let's say, took half an hour. You talk about waiting an hour and a half, 2 hours, standing there waiting for night to be able to roast maximum. It's the area of the sheep itself is muktzah. That's just because it's a muktzah.
And not because of Erev.
Not because of the area. No.
There was an Erev.
Yeah, there was an area. There was an area.
There was
There was an
There was enough room
area.
for everyone though.
What?
How was enough room?
The nest. There's a nest.
How was enough room for
That was
everyone?
a
That's the question. I don't know. The question how there was enough room was a mess. Yes, that's you have to say it's a mess. Omar Bitzchak. So this is all part of the kuzuvi we mentioned that you have to picture it all and get excited about how it was. Omar Bitzchak. You have to have 3 groups of 30.
No, usually you're like, yeah, we're very comfortable in the government. Now people start thinking about.
The Torah says,
I'm very comfortable.
the Torah says, Kahal David. Can you hear me now?
Yehuda's got a new name as well.
Moshe Snitsky.
Yeah.
I know he made a share this morning. They said, "Oh, Moshe Snitsky speaking."
Yeah, they thought it was the other one as well. They're expecting a ginger guy.
You're really getting off the point.
Anyway, I know.
The point is, we get the rice and sort out. The Torah says Kalei Davar Yisrael means 3 groups. Each group is 10 people. There are 2 ways to understand it. Either you need to have 3 groups of 10, 10, 10, 10, or you have to have 1 group of 30. Levi, can you hear? You have to have either 3 groups of 10 or 1 group of 30. The question is, since we don't know, so we're machmir and we have 3 groups of 30. Because if the term meant 1 group of 30, you have 3 groups of 10, you haven't got it. If you have, so you have to have 3 groups of 30. Now, what happens if there was only 50 Yidden bringing Korban Pesach? Meaning, every Korban Pesach always was about 10, 20 people. So let's say there's only 500 Yidden who are not Tomei. So how can you do 50 people? You need 3 groups of 30. Can anybody think of a solution? You start with 30, 10 go out, another 10 go in. 10 go out, another 10 go in. That way you've always got 30. That's the more explains that. I just explained outside. You've got Kalei Davar Yisrael, 3 groups. Question of 30, 30, 30, 10, 10, 10. We try to be machmir. But it means either a group of 30 or 3 groups of 10. And then the more says, Omar Bisach, in a Pesach, my time, Kalei Davar Yisrael. We're not sure if Bas Achas you need to have 30 or 10, 10, 10. Okay, we don't show if you need to have 3 groups of 10 in one go, if you need 10, 3 groups of 10 afterwards, you can always manage with 50. The idea to loss it, taking 30, and they do it. 10 go out, 10 come in, people have different gilsa. And then that way, with 50 people, you can have 3 groups of 30, 10 go out, 10 go in, 10 go out, 10 go in, and then you've always got 3 groups of 30. The Mishnah says the doors were locked. How were the doors locked? Itman. They got locked by themselves with a nes. The doors closed by themselves with a miracle. You had to lock the doors. They didn't close themselves. You had to actually lock it. Were the doors locked by themselves, or was it through a nes? There's a kasha which the Marshal asks, which if anybody would be listening, should straight away have the question, unless you're nervous of asking it. Come on, unbelievable posture question. You're very close, but you're not said it good enough. You're not listening, maybe. I do, so I can tell. What? Marshal asks the question, Abai have an argument, how did the doors in Azor get locked? By a nes, that means they closed themselves? Or did you actually have to have somebody go and lock the doors? No, did the doors close themselves? You're not thinking. We just had the question 30, 30, 30, 10, 10, 10. We don't know. Since we don't know, so we do 30, we do 30, 30 every time because we're not sure. Do you need to have 30 in one group or 3 groups? Says the Marshal, I'll tell you what you should do. Get 10 people to go in. Wait. If the doors close themselves, then you know that it's good enough. If the doors don't close themselves, it's not enough.
LMI, it didn't close themselves.
So, no, Abai says it did. Abai says they closed themselves. How can you say LMI against Abai? So the Marshal says, for Yesh Yashiv, there is an answer, but he doesn't tell us the answer. Yes, we want to say for Yusuf, where he answers it. The Tzlach goes with a huge avichus of it. Tzlach, you can't imagine such a thing. Tzlach, the Tzlach. Yes? No. It's called Becheska Landau. He called himself the Noda Yehuda because his father was called Yehuda. I thought that's why you said the word Yehuda. Noda Yehuda, Tzlach. Anyway, huge avichus. What's this avichus about? Can you rely on a nes to verify an halacha? Because they didn't know 30, 10, 10, 10. Can you rely on a nes to verify an halacha? But the matzlach is very long, but I was hoping you'd ask the question yourself. No, we didn't ask halachic shayos. So that's the question whether they should go to war. Halachic shayos.
There's a whole Gemara about it.
Yes, there are many Gemaras about the Gemara in Bava Metzia, Gemara in Brachas, yes. But the question is over here, Tosfos there says, Tosfos in Brachas says, you're allowed to rely on Shomayim if they don't paskin against the majority. That's why, for example, the Gemara says, we passed back Beis Hillel, because the Baskel came out, we passed back Beis Hillel. But the Tosfos, what do you mean, if Baskel, who cares what Baskel says? Says Tosfos, because Beis Hillel were the majority anyways, therefore, says Tosfos that they're allowed to rely. Says that Tzlach, according to that Tosfos, this Gemara is even worse. Because over here we don't know the answer. So let Shemaim pass. Anyway, we haven't got time to go through the Tzlach. If you want to, you can go through. Okay. It says, well, my benayu. Ike benayu lemisbach hadnis, do rely on miracles. Meaning, people would all push. According to Abaye, we didn't stop them. Push, keep pushing. Oh, maybe the doors won't close. Says Abaya, doesn't matter. Abaya won't know to that. When Hashem wants to close the doors, he'll close the doors. You keep pushing in, eventually get him. We don't rely on an S, and we have a guard there or somebody to tell them, wait a second, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait till the next group is full. Get it disturbed quite a bit. It's a pity because it's got okay. Chas v'shalom. The Gemara says a very, very harsh story. I was impressed that the article missed out the story because they probably didn't want to get into political correctness. It's a Gemara idiot. What happened was there's a machlokes there. A woman who's a soiter, who's a giyovus. Do we give her the waters of the paraduma? So Kavim ben Mahalal says that we don't. The Chacham said to him, "How can you say we don't? Shmai v'avtalya, and they once did it." So what did Kavim ben Mahalal answer? According to one version of the Mishnah, that Shmai v'avtalya we gave him. Since they were gave him, so therefore they themselves wanted to support their own importance. So they took shkua. They gave it to people like themselves. When they heard that terrible zilzul, they put the Kavim ben Mahalal in the chayvim, and when he died, they threw stones at his bed. That's the Mishnah idiots. And the Mishnah says that one man Dama says that can't be true. No such thing. That Kavim ben Mahalal would do such a mistake. There was nobody as wise and as much as Shema like Kavim ben Mahalal when they locked the doors of the Azon. Somebody could tell me this morning, it just doesn't sound as good. I spent a long time explaining it. I hope it's very straightforward. If I want to say something very, very great, what I could say is like this, that even in the most crowded spot, where there's the most major amount of people, you will find nobody like him. That's all the Gemara means. That when they would lock the doors of the Azor, which in those days, that was the most crowded place ever be, you will find nobody like a Kavim ben Mahalal. The Mashal asks, if you want to praise, not here, the Mashal Idiot asks, if that's the case, you want to praise somebody, I'll give a better praise. Just say he's the greatest person in Klal Yisrael. Why do you have to say that you can't lock the doors of the Azor? It's somebody greater. No, so the Mashal says because Kavim ben Mahalal wasn't that based in and he wasn't a Nasi. And nobody wanted to speak in a way which was Zalz. You can't say it's the greatest. He says there were three groups. So by saying that when they locked the doors of the Azor, there was nobody greater, it's not, the Nos could be one, that base could be another, says Marshal, so you've not been Mazal in them. Okay, it's a nice letter from the Marshal. The Maaseh says that when you lock the doors of the Azor, there was nobody as great as him. Abai metais the Tamei, V'Rov metais the Tamei. Abai metais the Tamei, V'Azor b'Shor Shenina Lo, when the doors would automatically close, Al Kolod b'Yisrael v'Chachma v'Yaschid v'Kavim v'Malam. When they would actually lock it, so we have two different shotim, where the door is locked automatically, where the door is locked by people. And when the Kavim ben Mahalal came there, the Gemara there says it wasn't the Kavim ben Mahalal, it was a different person. The Kavim ben Mahalal never done such an avir, because when they locked the doors of the Azor, or they got locked automatically, there was nobody as great as the Kavim ben Mahalal. Nobody ever got crushed. One old person got crushed, and they called it the squashed Pesach. The Mamami Panu, very interesting safe, by the way. There's a safe in Bishai Mod Chavit. Anyway, he says that this person was a Gilgul of the person that was the guard of Elisha. And he was one of the Zaz and Elisha, that's why he deserved to get crushed again. Okay. Sorry, I want to know how many Yidden there were. When did Agrippas HaMelech live? When did he live? What? Agrippas HaMelech. When did Agrippas HaMelech live? About 150 years, 150 years before the end of the second Beis HaMikdash. So Amalei the Kohen Gadol. He said to the Kohen Gadol, look at the Korban Pesach and work out how many Yidden. Not al kulim kol echad. He took one kidney from every korban. He saw double the amount of people coming out of Mitzrayim. How many people came out of Mitzrayim? Double is 1.2 million. Yeah, but it means men. So double like that is 1.2 million kidneys. Wait a second. That share the korban. And the Gemara carries on. Very good. That's besides for the people that were Tomei and when they were far away. There was no such thing as called Pesach, which had less than 10 people. It had more than 10 people. So there was a minimum of 12 million Yidden living in that at the time, besides the people who were Tomei and yeah, okay. Besides the people that were Tomei who lived far away, there were 12 million people. The minimum, because there was always a minimum of 10. So there could have been much more, 15, 20 million. Well, you could say Pesach Be'ubin. They would call it the thick Pesach. What? 15, 20 million people in total in Pesach.
That men and women and children?
Yeah, well, I tell you what it is. You would count women and children for common Pesach as long. No, that's a shaila because a child that can't eat a kazayas can't be counted. So people that can be counted, somebody that can eat, a woman can be counted if she can eat 10, if she can eat a kazayas. So we talk about 20, 30 million people. And that means it comes out that every group, when they came into the Beis Midrash, how many people were in each group? No, how many people came into that Azor to Shech the Korban Pesach? There were 400,000. Because there was 1.2 million korbanos. So in the area of that Azor, how big was that Azor? How big was that Azor? How big was it? Very good. 500 amos by 500 amos. So that is 25,000. No, it is
2.5 square kilometers.
500 amos. 500 amos is 300 meters. 300 meters by 300 meters is 300 meters by 300 meters approximately. That's how big it was, and they fitted in 400,000. That's without the sheep, by the way. We saw when we were trying to strip it. You have to get
all the same time.
All at the same time. Yeah, because there was minimum of 400,000. There were 3 groups.
Not 1,000. 900.
It's 900.
900, not 900.
300.
900.
No, it's 300 times 300.
Yeah.
How much? No, 300.
90,000.
300.
90,000 square meters. That's it.
90,000 square. It's quite a lot. It's quite a big.
Says the Gemara.
How many people you need to be?
But you need to have the sheep, and you need to have the mizbeach, and you need to have the Beis Hamikdash. You couldn't stand in the Beis Hamikdash. Look at this. Frei the Gemara. Yeah, I saw Tzfufin. The Batul says, what means Tzfufin? Batul says Tzfufin means to float. There were so many people. Yeah, there were people on top of each other. Not al Frei the Gemara, not al Kuli. He took a kidney. Oh boy, Aktur. You need to burn it on the Mizbeach. How can he take a kidney that can God do it? You need to burn it on the Mizbeach. Then he sacrificed it. You're not allowed to mix each one with another. You can't afterwards sacrifice all the kidneys. You have to sacrifice each kidney separately. You sacrifice each kidney by itself. You had to sacrifice the kidney with the rest of it. You couldn't separate the kidneys. Elo, what he did was like this. He would grab the kidney and hold it. And then somebody else standing there, he would lift the kidney. Somebody would drop a bean or a pebble into a bucket. And then they counted the beans and the pebbles. Yeah, the shocking until they gave him something else to be able to count
It
with.
count that much. No, not time a day. It doesn't count that much.
Well, Pesach, there'll be one Kohen that did it. One Kohen did it. It was Kohen God that did it.
I'm sure when Shabbos was there, Yom Tov,
Yes.
they must have had people eating other
foods, yes.
Must have happened.
It's hard to understand. There's a beautiful sefer called Shiur Pesach. And he's got quite a bit describing. I remember once reading it, unbelievable sefer. Do you realize that every single person had to go to mikvah on their Pesach? Now he works out like this: that in the Gemara, let's say there were 5 million people. Let's say 5 million people, not so many. Wait a second. Think about it for a minute. 5 million people. Now, how long does it take you to get undressed, dip, and get dressed again? What's the minimum amount of time it takes? Let's say a minute. Let's say a minute. A minute is very quick. Let's say a minute. So now, let's say you have 1,000. Let's say you have 100 mikvahs. So for every mikvah, you have 50,000 people. 50,000 people. Now you only had about 4 hours, 5 hours to do a mikvah, which means you only got 300 minutes. 300 minutes means that you can only get, if every person takes 1 minute, you can only get 300 people in that mikvah. One person at a time. So let's say you could have a big mikvah, 100 mikvahs, and each one you can have 100 people at one go. It's still not enough. So the only mikvahs, it works out there had to be tens of thousands of mikvahs. And you had to table your chairs. Okay, that you could have done before Pesach. The person himself had to table their Pesach. Your kelim, you had to table. Yeah, they used to table the kelim. But that they could have done the day before Pesach. The person himself had to table on the day of Pesach. And he brings a rash in Porah that you had to also get sprinkled for the Porah Adumah. And he says it was fascinating thing. One of the Rishonim writes, how do you get sprinkled for the Porah Adumah? There was a special road, and the Kohanim would stand on balconies, and you used to throw down water on the Porah Adumah, and you walked through the road, and when you felt a tiny drop coming off, you didn't walk through the road again. Says the Mishnah, Kohanim omdin shuas chulu. They would stand in rows. My time, why would they stand in rows? So why would they stand one row gold, one row silver? Maybe one time you take gold and get silver. That's why you had to stick to rows. Maybe you'll take a gold bowl worth 200 and give back one worth 100, and therefore it's no good. So here we've got big brachas to show you what's the problem. Rashi explains the concept of mali makadish v'meridim. If I was a kohen and I was using a gold bowl, and now you're going to give me a silver bowl, you've put me down, and therefore we can't have that. Furthermore, if that's the problem, so then every bowl should be weighed. Some bowls weigh 200 gold coins, some big gold bowls only weigh 100 gold coins. If you originally gave me a 200 gold coin of a bowl, and now only 100 gold coin, I've also gone down. The Tosfos has a completely different explanation. He says that the Kohanim would want, I don't know why it'd be such a thing, they would steal the bowls. And what would happen is they'd stand in the roll of gold and take a silver bowl and slip it in. It says, well, if that's the case, they could slip a cheap bowl in. So the Gemara says, Elo, it was nothing to do with stealing, nothing to do with Ma'alim Kodesh from a reading. It was just to make it beautiful. They would have gold and silver, that instead of mixing them up, it looks much nicer if you have a whole row of gold, a whole row of silver. It was nothing to do with halachic issues or technical issues. It was just austerity. It was aesthetic. All the boards Beis Mikdash did not have bases, except for the spoons of the lechem aponim. If you put them down by the lechem aponim, the bread would break. You'd put two bowls with frankincense on the table of the lechem aponim. If they didn't have a base, if they were like what's the word used, conical shape, then they would topple over. If they would topple over, they would break the lechem aponim. So there were spoons actually. They were like two big ladles. They had a base at the bottom for the lechem aponim, but the rest of them never had a base. Why? In order that we should put the bowl down, and then that way the blood would become congealed. Does it mean only what about a kohen? That's why you go for Kamash on the Shchit Bezog Shevo. That you're allowed to use a Yisroel. But Kibbutz Kohen or Kamash on the Kabul Melech says Kohen. What would happen is, instead of walking with it, what would happen is you just pass it. It would be what's called a relay. You know what relay is? Everybody starts a chain. The Gemara, how can you do it? The Gemara in Tzvach has a shaila. Do you have to actually walk with the blood, or it's enough just to pass the blood? Over here, nobody walked. So you can see that you don't need to walk. So maybe every person, when they get the blood, would shift with their feet, and in that way each person was moving. If that's the case, so what's the chiddush of our Mishnah? The chiddush can't be that they didn't do halacha, they did halacha. Everybody wanted to have a part of the mitzvah. So how can you get all the kohen to have a part of the mitzvah? The answer is use a relay system. If you didn't use a relay system, there'll be some kohen who won't get a chance. And that's one of the mekoros we have by Bismillah, where we pass the baby from one child to the next, one person to the next. Why? Because everybody wants to have a part of the mitzvah. So also over here, we pass the blood from one hand to the next, everybody should have a part of the mitzvah. You get the full bowl and then you pass the empty bowl, but not the other way around. You don't first get the empty and then pass the big one, the full one. That you can't pass over a mitzvah. You get a mitzvah, you can't pass over. And since now you've got opportunity to do a mitzvah, we don't want to pass over the opportunity. I can't decide if we should do the next Gemara because it's a new topic. What do I vote? Not so easy. Okay, we'll leave it then. Not so easy. It's a shame to spoil it because it's machlekes tanamis. Right. Have turns each. Because the Lord have yes, for sure.
When you start thinking about it,
yeah, it was amazing. Yes. Unbelievable experience. Yes. I do the lift. What? No, I don't. Okay, shkoich everybody.
Thank you.